Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn and I am so glad you found me. Today, I thought that we were done working until after Christmas, and then the New York Times came out with an article called "We Can Bury Anyone: Inside a Hollywood Smear Campaign," written by Megan Twohey, Mike McIntyre, and Julie Tate. Basically, they kind of like run through everything that happened with the whole like Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni thing this summer. And they released this 80-page court filing by Blake Lively against Justin Baldoni and his team. And it is, she alleges in there just absolutely deplorable behavior that happened on the set of It Ends With Us. And then the like press nightmare / smear campaign that followed. Okay. So we've got our little trusty iPad here today because we're going to be going through and reading from this actual court filing. It's insane. So quick recap though. This summer, as the release of It Ends With Us, which was the film adaptation of Colleen Hoover's book, approached, internet sleuths were in a frenzy over some questionable actions like Blake, Ryan, and Colleen Hoover, the author, unfollowing Justin Baldoni on all socials, which was very odd because Justin is the director. His production company was like producing. He was like all hands in on this. So it was really odd that his co-star Blake Lively, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and then the author and other cast members are unfollowing him. So that kind of like started things. And then during the press junkets, Justin wasn't seen doing any with any other actors. A lot of the other actors were together and he was by himself. Same with the red carpet premiere, everybody together, Justin solo or with his wife. So when this whole started, there was swirlings that something obviously happened on the set and that Justin was the problem, because why is everybody banding together and going and he's like left alone? And then it seemed like overnight that whole firing squad just like started pointing at Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. They're accusing them of wanting to steamroll the project and take over it and rewrite it and become, the director and get all these accolades and stuff like that. And that she was a very mean girl and difficult to work with. Don't worry, we will talk about that infamous Mean Girl interview that had resurfaced in a bit. The feeling from the public also was that Blake was being very insensitive to victims of domestic violence, which is a part of the theme of the movie, and not focusing on that aspect during these press junkets as well. So you'll notice that when this all happened, I didn't talk about it, and Chelsea and I didn't talk about it on the podcast either. There was a point that we were going to, and part of that was because I had spoken with somebody early on when all of this was coming out who had, like very concerning information, and we didn't, I didn't know where to go from there. It's hard to like kind of like dig into some of these things, and obviously we're going to see why, like you need subpoenas and stuff like Blake Lively had to do to get certain information. But the thing was after this came out, it kind of felt like I was like, oh, like a little bit, I guess, like validated for feeling like for believing who I had spoken to, because some of this stuff was highlighted in the legal complaint by Blake that wasn't brought public before. And so it was also frustrating because I believed the source, I believed their sources, but we just couldn't find any like concrete evidence for it. So there are things that aren't even mentioned in this complaint. They're like briefly touched on, but don't really go deeper about past things concerning Justin Baldoni. And so I hope now that Blake has done this and things have come to light, like maybe some of that will, I don't know. Maybe I'm able to like look into more of this, but it was really interesting to like see things that hadn't been mentioned that we knew about, and then being like, oh, okay, so yeah, there is something there. Anyways, let's go back to this. So Blake Lively, again, she's criticized because she's got this, everyone's like, why is she so tone deaf? She's like so like light and positive and bring your friends, and focusing on like the floral aspect because her character had a flower shop, and they're like, you're like really missing the point of the movie. Were you not the star? And I also felt, was like, it didn't make sense. Like, why? And also when you're getting the feedback, like that's still the message. So there was one point that when this was coming out, Blake, just addressed on her socials that she, very much was in support of domestic violence, and then shared resources on her platforms of, where they could go, areas that she was wanting to like focus and help as well. But she didn't share why that approach was taken. And now we know why, and we'll get into that as well. It comes to light that Justin Baldoni, the director and star of the film, and then his business partner, Jamie Heath, who is the lead producer and partner of the production company Wayfarer, hired a crisis public relations expert. So this, again, I'm like, when you're hearing things, you're like, okay, so why they're the ones doing it? Like, what more is going to come to light here? There's got to be more. And then again, it was kind of just like brushed under the rug. No one's really digging deep as to why they did this, and they pretty much just came out unscathed. So now we know, all right? Last week on December 20th, 2024, for anybody watching in the future, the New York Times released this expose based on the legal complaint that Blake Lively filed against Justin and others. So now we are going to go through this, you guys. This is insane. So Blake Lively, it's just her, is the plaintiff, and then it is versus Wayfarer Studios. Like I said, that is Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath's production company. It also mentions Steve Sarowitz, Melissa Nathan, the agency group, Jennifer Abel, RWA Communications, Jed Wallace, and Street Relations, Inc. So her complaint for damages was, there's 10. There was sexual harassment, retaliation, failure to investigate, prevent, and or remedy harassment, retaliation. Again, aiding and abetting harassment and retaliation, breach of contract, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, false light invasion of privacy, interference with prospective economic advantage. So this complaint alleges that during the shooting, Blake Lively had complained that the men had repeatedly violated physical boundaries and made sexual and other inappropriate comments to her, meaning Justin and Jamie. So this complaint it's 80 pages. It didn't feel like that. I don't know if you're the same. I'll leave the link if you are and you like to read over these types of things. I was fascinated. So I read it over the weekend and wow. Okay. So introduction. This is how she introduces her complaint. She says, on January 4th, 2024, prior to resuming filming of It Ends With Us following the guild strike, so they had paused. So before coming back, there was an all-hands meeting to address the hostile work environment that nearly derailed production of the film. Attendees of this meeting included Justin Baldoni, Jamie Heath, a person named Ange Gianetti.
Sorry.
Love you. Which is the film's representative for its distributor, Sony Pictures Entertainment. Alex Sachs, a producer on the film, Todd Black, a producer on the film, Blake Lively, and Blake also had the, agreed upon right to have a representative present, and she chose her husband. So she's got all of these people here to discuss this issue, and they're like, okay, like you can also bring your representative, and she's like, yeah, I'm bringing my husband because of the repeated sexual harassment and other disturbing behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. As discussed in detail below, Miss Lively was forced to address concerns about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct with them directly and began doing so months before filming began. The concerns she raised were not only for herself, but for other female cast and crew, some of who had also spoken up. The January 4th meeting occurred only after Wayfarer had rebuffed Miss Lively's efforts repeatedly. So she had tried to bring this up and it was just kind of, like always pushed to the side, or, there was like little like, oh, okay, like you're prude kind of jabs. She'll get into detail about that. So she says, during the January 4th meeting, the parties discussed in detail the inappropriate conduct that Miss Lively, her employees, and other cast and crew experienced at the hands of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. After the list below was reviewed and discussed in its entirety, all parties present agreed that the outlined conduct would cease. So this is the list below that she was like, if you want me and this film to like keep going, or like our crew and stuff like that, the people who have had complaints, like this is what needs to stop. Okay, so this was specific. No more showing nude videos or images of women, including producer's wife, to Blake Lively and or her employees. No more mention of Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath's previous pornographic addiction or Blake Lively's lack of pornography consumption to Blake Lively or to other crew members. No more discussions to Blake Lively and or her employees about personal experiences with sex, including as it relates to spouses or others. No more mention to Blake Lively or her employees of personal times that physical consent was not given in sexual acts as either the abuser or the abused. No more descriptions of their own genitalia to Blake Lively. No more jokes or disparaging comments to be made to Blake Lively and or her employees about HR complaints Wayfarer has already received on set or about missing the HR meeting. No more inquiries by Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively's trainer without her knowledge or consent to disclose her weight. No more mention by Mr. Baldoni of him speaking to Blake Lively's dead father. No more pressing by Justin Baldoni for Blake Lively to discuss her religious beliefs or unsolicited sharing of his. So just a little bit of a little something, kind of what I was referencing earlier, has a lot to do with that. If Blake Lively and or her infant is exposed to COVID again, Blake Lively must be provided with immediate notice as soon as Wayfarer or any other producers become aware of such exposure without her needing to uncover days later herself. So I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. They were aware that there was like a COVID outbreak. She had just had a baby, like bringing the baby on set to be able to like breastfeed and stuff and still work. And this like brand new little baby in her got COVID. Number 11, an intimacy coordinator must be present at all times while Blake Lively is on set in scenes with Mr. Baldoni. No more personal physical touching or sexual comments by Mr. Baldoni or Mr. Heath to be tolerated by Blake Lively and or any other of her employees, as well as any female cast or crew without their express consent. No more improvising of kissing. All intimate touch must be choreographed in advance with Blake Lively and an intimacy coordinator. No biting or sucking of the lip without Blake Lively's consent, and all intimate on-camera touch and conversations must be in character, not spoken from Mr. Baldoni to Blake Lively personally. We'll get into like some of these specifics in a minute. Blake Lively to have a representative on set at all times and with a monitor during scenes involving nudity, sexual activity, or violence with Mr. Baldoni. All actors participating with Blake Lively in intimate scenes involving her being in any state of nudity or simulated nudity must be classified as active, working actors, not friends of the director or producers, and must be pre-approved by Blake Lively. No more filming of any Blake Lively nudity without a full executed SAG-compliant nudity rider in place. Any such footage already shot without this rider in place and is in direct violation of SAG requirements and may not be used without Blake Lively and her legal representatives' prior written consent. Any scene by Blake Lively or another performer depicting the character of Lily that involves nudity or simulated sex must adhere to the Blake Lively approved script. An intimacy coordinator must be on set for all scenes involving nudity and or simulated sex and must have a monitor to ensure compliance. No monitors to be viewed or accessible on set or remotely during closed set scenes except by Blake Lively approved essential crew and personnel. No more entering, attempting to enter, interrupting, pressuring, or asking Blake Lively to enter her trailer or her makeup trailer by Mr. Heath or Mr. Baldoni while she is nude for any reason. No more private, multi-hour meetings in Blake Lively's trailer with Mr. Baldoni crying, with no outside Blake Lively appointed representative to monitor. No more pressing by Mr. Baldoni to Sage, any of Blake Lively's employees. Producer Alex Sachs to be given standard rights, inclusion, and authority per her job description as a representative to Blake Lively when signing on. Sony must have an active daily role in overseeing physical production for the remainder of the film to monitor safety for the casting crew, schedule, logistics, problem solving, and creative. Engagement of an experienced producer to supervise the safety of the cast and crew, schedule, logistics, problem solving, and creative for the remainder of the shoot. Example, Todd Lieberman, Elizabeth Cantillon, Miri Yoon, Lynette Howell. Engagement of Blake Lively approved A-list stunt double to perform Lily in scenes with Mr. Baldoni involving rape and or violence. Blake Lively to perform only close-up work or work from a Blake Lively pre-approved shot list in scenes with Mr. Baldoni involving sexual violence. No more adding sex scenes, oral sex, or camera climaxing by Blake Lively outside the scope of the script Blake Lively approved when signing on to the project. So like no adding things after. No more asking or pressuring Blake Lively to cross physical picket lines. No more retaliatory or abusive behavior to Blake Lively for raising concerns or for requesting safeguards. An in-person meeting before production resumes with Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, Ms. Sachs, the Sony representative, the new producer, Blake Lively, and Blake Lively's spouse, Ryan Reynolds, to confirm the approved plan for implementation of the above that will be adhered to for the physical and emotional safety of Blake Lively, her employees, and all cast and crew moving forward. Okay? So this stuff was all really specific. When I saw that, I was like, what in the shit is going on? We'll get into it. So after this meeting, their studio Wayfarer agreed to provide a full-time intimacy coordinator, bring an outside producer, and put other safeguards on set. And then in a side letter to Miss Lively's contract, signed by Mr. Heath, the studio agreed not to retaliate against the actress. So for me personally, the fact that this was all done during filming and not when like everything was buzzing after it was done and like during the press junkets, like this validates the claims. You know, it's not like this was just like pulled together afterwards to like try to save. Like this was done in private. Public didn't know, and this was like during the strike. This film almost didn't happen because she's like, if this stuff does not stop, I'm not moving forward. So this whole situation now very much reads like once this meeting took place, there was the fear that the alleged exposure to this was going to come out, and they started preparing at this point for that rebuttal. So they were like, wow, like she's got all of this out. Like she's very specific here, knowing allegedly about these concerns. Like Jamie Heath signed off on this, agreeing to like all of those terms. And so they were like, oh, okay, like if something happens, we need to be prepared, okay? This was their initial response to it. Says, after receiving the document, Wayfarer responded that Wayfarer, Sony, and production respectfully acknowledge that Miss Lively has concerns regarding safety, professionalism, and workplace culture. Although our perspective differs in many aspects, ensuring a safe work environment is a paramount, irrespective of differing viewpoints. Regarding your outlined requests, we find most of them not only reasonable, but also essential for the benefits of all parties involved. I also thought the fact that it was just her and Ryan for this showed how serious like they were, because it's like it's just the two of them standing on business. She's got her husband. It's like, yeah, he knows. He knows. So her complaint goes on to say that at the end of this meeting, once everybody signed off, it was like, okay, everybody agrees. These are the concerns. Let's finish this movie. They agreed that they were going to implement the protections. And she said, everything did finish. Like it was fine. Once that was acknowledged, we finished the film. So she says, leading up to and in connection with the release of the film during the summer of 2024, Miss Lively and fellow cast members promoted the film in accordance with the marketing plan that was created and delivered by the film's distributor, Sony, which is summarized in the talking points attached to hereto as Exhibit C. So it says in there that like Blake Lively and the other cast, not just her, other people too, were under contractual obligation to promote this film with the marketing plan. And that's standard. Like that's no different than, not to like compare like content creation and stuff like that to like making a film. But if you're talking about something or promoting something, there are guidelines. There are talking points. There are do this, do not do this, say this, do not say this, and like certain words that you can and cannot use. And so they are all given this, and this is within the lawsuit that you guys are seeing now. So within this marketing plan, it directly says in there to focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence. Also in the outline was to avoid talking about the film that makes it feel sad or heavy. This is a story of hope. So they are literally being told this. Don't make it seem like that. Don't focus on like the sad stuff. And I get it. I get it in terms of a marketing standpoint. You aren't wanting people to like look at it and be like, oh my God, like this like, sounds awful. Like I don't want to go here. So this was the plan. Then in the days leading up to the film's release, Justin Baldoni abruptly pivoted away from the film's marketing plan and the types of publicity activities in which he had previously participated and agreed to. What the public did not know was that Mr. Baldoni and his team did so in an effort to explain why many of the film's cast and crew had unfollowed Mr. Baldoni on social media and were not appearing with him in public. To that end, he and his team used domestic violence survivor content to protect his public image, as described in further detail below. So this is wild to me. This is Justin's company, okay? He's part of laying out the marketing strategy. She's holding, and so is the other cast, their end of the contract. And he goes rogue to make himself look like a better ally, to try to explain like why they're unfollowing and like being like, oh, I'm the only one who's been seeing it this way. They're just, I don't know why they're going, like this way with the marketing. It was your forking marketing plan. Sorry, sir, what? I can't. It goes on to say what the public also didn't know was that this was the beginning of a multi-tiered plan that Mr. Baldoni and his team described as social manipulation designed to destroy Miss Lively's reputation. And those are their words. That's why it's in, like quotations, like quoted. That plan, and we'll see the receipts. We have text messages, you guys, okay? This is insane. That plan was backed by virtually unlimited resources. Wayfarer's co-founder, co-chairman, and leading financier is multi-billionaire Steve Sarowitz, who divulged at the film's New York premiere on August 6, 2024, that he was prepared to spend $100 million to ruin the lives of Miss Lively and her family. With that backing, Mr. Baldoni and his Wayfarer associates embarked on a sophisticated press and digital plan in retaliation for Miss Lively exercising her legally protected right to speak out about their misconduct on set, with the additional objective of intimidating her and anyone else from revealing in public what actually occurred. And this is so effed up to see all of this and then the facts and the receipts and stuff like that, because they were like, oh, she's speaking out. And in that, they already started planning, which we'll see with all the texts, their rebuttal, their retaliation. And she even says in here, she was not planning on saying, she didn't say anything, and she hasn't. Like, this speaks volumes that this is the first time, and she's done it properly, like getting legal representation and everything, getting subpoenas, like going through the stuff, getting the facts, knowing that something was going on, and knowing that it had to do with her bringing up these concerns for their shitty behavior. Oh my gosh, you guys don't even understand once we get into the text messages. It's wild. They're coming right now. So on July 31st, 2024, following the recommendation of their publicist, Jennifer Abel, Wayfarer, Jennifer, we'll talk about you. Wayfarer and Mr. Baldoni retained a crisis communication specialist named Melissa Nathan. Also Melissa. Miss Nathan delivered a proposal to Mr. Baldoni, which included a website, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, to engage with audience in the right way, start threads of theories. This is the way to be fully 100% protected. Miss Nathan also proposed the creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change the narrative and stay on track. Per Miss Nathan, all of this will be most importantly untraceable. Oh, Melissa. As Miss Abel described it, the plan was to engage in social media mitigation and proactive fan posting to counter the negative as well as social manipulation. Yeah, Jennifer's words. So as the introduction said, Blake subpoenaed multiple documents, which included text messages, emails between Justin and his colleagues, and then the hired crisis team member, or as I like to call them, hitmen, allegedly, in my opinion. And this is, you guys, I don't know if you're ready. I wasn't ready. This is madness. Okay. So one of the crisis companies that was hired was this Melissa Nathan, which her company is called the Agency Group, known as TAG in the complaint, TAG. So we're just going to say TAG. Whenever you hear that, it's Melissa Nathan's company. So part of the subpoena document was, it was TAG's scenario planning, like what they laid out. So on August 2nd, 2024, TAG circulated a scenario planning document to Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and others, which described preparations and strategy should Miss Lively and her team make her grievances public. To get ahead of the narrative, Miss Nathan's plan proposed strategies to advance misleading counter-narratives, including pushing Nathan's narrative that Miss Lively had a less than favorable reputation, proposing to explore planting stories about the weaponizing of feminism, and misleadingly blaming Miss Lively for production members' job losses. They're saying this. They're saying, like, let's misleadingly blame her in this plan. So when the plan was presented to Justin and his team, this is his response. This is brutal. Like, they're already saying, you know, like, we've got the takedowns, we've got the Reddits, we've got people in there. We're gonna flip the narrative. We're gonna point the finger at her and away from you. It's brutal as it is. And Justin goes mourning, not in love with the document they sent, not sure I'm feeling the protection I felt on the call. Meaning he thinks it should be more aggressive. He thinks they should do more to Blake and others for speaking out. Or like, you know, like intimidate the others of speaking out. So then in response goes, this is the first time I've personally gone through scenario planning with them. So I think let's let them discuss the thinking behind the document and the actual process and protocol of how they implement these things. That's the most important part of this, is how quickly they can shut things down and place stories in your favor. Be honest on this call and let's give real feedback to each point. He goes, yeah, just feels very much like there's not much defense, and also them feeling strong like she's going to do something just a bit concerning what everyone had originally thought. Maybe if allegedly you didn't do all of the things she allegedly, you wouldn't need to do this. And wait till we get to the prices of this, like the costs of having a team like this, because this isn't free. And this is why these people can freaking apparently sleep at night, is because they've got money to do it. Okay, so we learn here that the blue part, like this is the first time me dealing with this. He's talking to Jeremy Heath, and then I believe Jennifer Abel is also in this thread. So later that day, after getting this message, Jennifer Abel and Melissa Nathan, the owner of TAG, exchanged the following text messages expressing that Mr. Baldoni wants to feel like Miss Lively can be buried, don't know. So Miss Abel and Miss Nathan agree that of course they would do just that, but they couldn't say that in writing. We can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. Plot twist, bitches. Oh my God, these women, him too, but like to just wait, because when you see. Okay, so to Melissa from Jennifer, you can of course do that, but I do think he needs to know. I'm going to confidentially send you something. He's texting me and Jamie on the side just to arm you before this call. I think you guys need to be tough and show the strength of what you guys can do in these scenarios. He wants to feel like she can be buried. So Jennifer's saying to Melissa, like, hey, you know, like, I know that, you know, this is all going to happen, but he's feeling he can't do enough. Like, we really got to like show him like how we're going to get her. he wants to feel like she can be buried. She goes, of course, but you know when we send over documents, we can't send over the work we will or could do because that could get us in a lot of trouble. She goes, we can't write it down to him. We can't write that we will destroy her. We will write, we will do this, we will do this, we will do this, we will do this. He has to look at it as information document for us to be armed with. That's all. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. Yeah, imagine. So then she follows up saying, you know we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. We will. I've been very tough. Also, she was hired by Drake, Travis Scott, Johnny Depp as well. So she's like, I've been here. A few days later, on August 5th, 2024, Mr. Baldoni sent the narrative for the social media campaign, sending Miss Abel a screenshot of a thread on X that accused another female celebrity of bullying women, which was Hailey Bieber. So he screenshots this and he states, this is what we need. So he's like, we need to get this out there about Blake and have everybody turn on her. And then Miss Abel replies that she had spoken to Melissa about this on the break, about what we discussed last night for the social and digital, and we're going to focus on Reddit, TikTok, and IG. So from this, obviously after the call, sounds like, yep, Justin and the team, they were ready to go ahead. So in the weeks and months following all of this, that's how they went. They started this sophisticated, coordinated, and well-financed retaliation plan. The retaliation campaign relied on more than just publicists and crisis managers spinning stories, though. They also retained subcontractors, including a Texas-based contractor named Jed Wallace, who weaponized a digital army around the country from the New York to Los Angeles area to create, seed, and promote content that appeared to be authentic on social media platforms and internet chat forum. So it was like he, this is what he does, and he self-admits it as well, but gets people to act well, I worked on, it wasn't like that. And actually it was like this, and curate these stories, and going in different directions. So it's oh, well, this, it's not coming from one person. This is coming from a bunch of people. This makes you think a lot, right? A lot. The Baldoni Wayfarer team would then feed pieces of this manufactured content to unwitting reporters, making content go viral in order to influence public opinion and thereby cause an organic pile-on. So that's nice that she even said in there being I actually don't even blame some of the media. And she's like, I understand that this is they were fed bullshit. She goes on to say that they engaged the same techniques to bolster Mr. Baldoni's credibility and suppress any negative content about him. So then it was they also applied pumping him up, fabricating things, planting these scenarios that didn't happen. And anytime there was anything negative, it was spinning it back to no. Oh, I was there. It was her, right? Just constantly redirecting. What's so crazy is this is all being done because they're scared of what Blake could say about her experience. And at this point, she hadn't. And says in here, I didn't intend to. It was addressed. It was acknowledged. We had safeguards in place. Nothing was added anymore. Yes, obviously, she had gone through some and other cast members that made this situation very uncomfortable, very inappropriate, but was I'm going to be professional and I'm going to finish this. I'm also going to market it the way that you, she has a contract. She's a professional. Her family's been in the industry for ever. So it goes on to say, on August 10th, the day after the release of the film, Melissa Nathan's team reported that they had started to see a shift on social, due largely to Jed and his team's effort to shift the narrative against Miss Lively. So she goes, hi team, so far extremely limited pickup on Daily Mail or Page 6. We will continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed. But so far it's been steady coverage on pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social due largely to Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards shining a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Again, we'll continue to send links and screenshots, but wanted to send an update in the meantime. That same day, she said that she noticed a part of this shift on socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them. That's her quote. She goes, sends it to Jennifer Abel. The majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them. LOL. This is insane. This is insane. Miss Nathan then bragged to Miss Abel that Mr. Baldoni doesn't realize how lucky he is right now, by which they were referring to their successful efforts to shut down stories that would have revealed how Mr. Baldoni's behavior included sexual connotations on set had made cast and crew beyond just Blake uncomfortable. So from Melissa to Jennifer again, he doesn't even realize how lucky he is right now. We need to press on him just how fucking lucky. Again, Melissa says, the whispering in the ear of sexual connotation like Jesus fucking Christ. Other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there is just so much. So she's saying like this is out there, and like they're being able to like to get on top of that and like still spin the narrative. She's like we are up against like so much, like look at how lucky he is that we're up against like these allegations and are still able to spin it. Like this is so deplorable. So this means that they are seeing other victims of his treatment and how much, you know, there was that supported what Blake was saying, and that he's lucky to have them because, you know, social media is taking the bait that they are putting in front of them. Less than a week later, they again bragged about how they had shut down stories regarding HR complaints on set. On August 15th, 2024, Melissa Nathan remarked that this went so well, it was genius. So, okay, we have the 4 major standing down on HR complaint. So, yeah, the actual text messages here from Melissa. Jen, this went so well. I am fucking dying. I have to call you later in a bit and tell you how this went. It was genius. Again, from Melissa to Jennifer. So, okay, we have the 4 major standing down on HR complaint. I think we are fine on that bit. On August 16th, Miss Nathan circulated a Daily Mail article entitled "String of Hard-to-Watch Videos Have Surfaced Following Tone-Deaf Q&A to Promote It Ends With Us Could Tarnish the 36-year-old star's golden Hollywood image for good." To which Miss Abel responded, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece." And Miss Abel replied, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." No, like I actually feel nauseous. That's sick. So yeah, in the screenshot you see here, it's like the screenshot of the Daily Mail and the link. And then yeah, Jennifer going, "Wow, you really outdid yourself with this piece." And then Melissa, "That's why you hired me, right? I'm the best." So the suit goes on to say, as their own words revealed, the purpose of this social manipulation plan was twofold. It aimed to both A, conceal the pattern of harassment and other misconduct by Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Wayfarer, and B, retaliate against Miss Lively by battering her image, harming her businesses, and causing her and her family severe emotional harm. Millions of people, including many reporters and influencers who saw these planted stories, social media posts, and other online content had no idea they were unwitting consumers of a crisis PR, astroturfing, and digital retaliation campaign created and funded by Mr. Baldoni and Wayfarer to hurt Miss Lively. That is precisely the goal of an astroturfing campaign, to light the fire and continue to stoke conversation secretly, blurring the lines between authentic and manufactured content and creating viral public takedowns. I think that this is in itself like so important for us to know. I think it's our responsibility to also like know this, acknowledge this, take accountability for anybody who, you know, like was there were so many people. And I'm not gonna lie, like there was obviously like pieces where I was just like, oh, like this does not look good. Even after like hearing some of the things that I had heard, you can't like deny, especially like the Mean Girl interview that like Blake Lively and Parker Posey had done like in 2016. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit, but that just goes to show like the two things can't be true. It's like you have factual information like kind of being like fed as much as it can be at this point, because I'm sure she already at this point, once figured out what was going on, knew that this was the route that she was going to need to take, because her word was not going to mean anything at this point. Their stories that they admit are fabricated were so much louder and had done so much damage. But yeah, this kind of like lifts the veil for us like fans or like common folk of like how long this has been going on and what happens when like figures behind the scenes are like shaping public opinion about celebrities through gossip columns, tabloids, having these like strategic interviews. And then we just like we just buy it. We believe it. So the complaint goes on to start dropping what they refer to as the factual background. Okay, so it goes the factual background. So these are their facts that they are standing on in this lawsuit. Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath are of Wayfarer engage in inappropriate and unwelcome behavior towards Miss Lively and others on the set of It Ends With Us. Mr. Baldoni launched Wayfarer Studios along with Mr. Sorowitz in 2020. Mr. Heath serves as Wayfarer's chief executive officer. Mr. Sorowitz is the leading financier of Wayfarer, and Mr. Heath, and Mr. Baldoni are close personal friends. Under the Wayfarer banner, Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath have many platforms, including the Man Enough podcast, which they co-host. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath have positioned Wayfarer as a male feminist platform that explores gender roles, dismantles toxic masculinity, and creates a safer and judgment-free society for women. Mr. Baldoni serves not only as the co-founder and co-chairman of the studio that financed and ran production of It Ends With Us, he also served as director, executive producer, and co-lead actor, playing the role of Raoul Kincaid. As studio head and director, all actors, crew, and staff on film, including Miss Lively, answered to Mr. Baldoni. In his own words, he was the leader who sat at the top of this totem pole. While Sony was the distributor releasing the film, Wayfarer was responsible for the production, and Wayfarer was led by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. Production of the film began in early May 2023 and lasted until it was suspended in mid-June 2023 due to the Writers Guild of America strike. During that time, Miss Lively and other cast and crew experienced invasive, unwelcome, unprofessional, and sexually inappropriate behavior by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. Because Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath held all leadership positions on the production, they answered to no one and brushed off or ignored the concerns of Miss Lively and others expressed. Mr. Baldoni ignored well-established industry protocols in filming intimate scenes and exploited the lack of control on set to behave inappropriately. Wayfarer failed to adhere to guild rules, as well as Miss Lively's contract and standard industry safety protocols with respect to nudity and intimate scenes, which the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Arts acknowledges places performers in uniquely vulnerable situations, which is true, right? Like, you need to have like rules on set when you're like doing these scenes. Such safeguards ignored by Wayfarer include providing performers with inappropriate notice of nudity and stimulated sex and ensuring that consent is given free of pressure or coercion. Signed nudity riders are in place, so they're saying like they ignored these. So they should have had signed nudity riders in place, spelling out the parameters of nudity or simulated sex scenes. They also didn't have safe and secure working conditions that are not detrimental to a performer's health, safety, morals, and career, and the use of intimacy coordinators to observe two intimate scenes. So I guess there were supposed to be intimate coordinators on those scenes. There weren't at this point. Without these protections in place, Mr. Baldoni improvised physical intimacy that had not been rehearsed, choreographed, or discussed with Miss Lively, with no intimacy coordinator involved. For instance, Mr. Baldoni discreetly bit and sucked on Miss Lively's lower lip during a scene in which he improvised numerous kisses on each take. Mr. Baldoni insisted on shooting the full scene over and over again, well beyond what would have been required on an ordinary set and without advance notice or consent. On another occasion, Mr. Baldoni and Miss Lively were filming a slow dance scene for a montage in which no sound was recorded. Mr. Baldoni chose to let the camera roll and have them perform the scene, but did not act in character as Ryle. Instead, he spoke to Miss Lively out of character as himself. At one point, he leaned forward and slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck and said, "It smells so good." None of this was remotely in character or based on any dialogue in the script, and nothing needed to be said because, again, there was no sound. Mr. Baldoni was caressing Miss Lively with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. Miss Lively later objected to this behavior, and Mr. Baldoni's response was, "I'm not even attracted to you." This is what pissed me off about fucking men like this. Like, oh my gosh. It's giving you like message somebody on like a dating app or whatever, like you DM somebody and then they're just like, oh, like, sorry, like, I'm not interested. And then it's like, well, you're fat cow anyway. You know what I mean? Like, okay. Ew. Ugh. Mr. Baldoni inserted improvised, gratuitous sexual content and or scenes involving nudity into the film, including This is a little bit disturbing, including for an underage character in highly unsettling ways. After Miss Lively signed onto the movie based on a draft of the script, Mr. Baldoni, without Miss Lively's knowledge or consent, personally added graphic content, including a scene in which Miss Lively was to orgasm on camera. When Miss Lively objected to the additions, Mr. Baldoni insisted he had added them because he was making the film through the female gaze. Although he agreed to remove the scenes, he made a last-ditch attempt to keep one in which the couple orgasmed together on their wedding night, which he said was important to him because he and his partner climaxed simultaneously during intercourse. Mr. Baldoni then intrusively asked Miss Lively whether she and her husband climaxed simultaneously during intercourse, which Miss Lively found invasive and refused to discuss. Yeah, none of your business, bro. What the fuck? This is so weird. This is so forking weird. On the day of shooting the scene in which Miss Lively's character gives birth, oh my God, you guys get this. Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath suddenly pressured Miss Lively to simulate full nudity, despite no mention of nudity for this scene in the script, her contract, or in previous creative discussions. Mr. Baldoni insisted to Miss Lively that women give birth naked. Again, why are you speaking for women, bro? Yeah, I don't know why this man thinks that he speaks for women. Like, yeah, not all women give birth naked. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Anyways, Mr. Baldoni insisted to Miss Lively that women give birth naked and that his wife had ripped her clothes off during labor. He claimed it was not normal for women to remain in their hospital gowns while giving birth. Again, how many births have you been present for, sir, that weren't your wife? Maybe she did that, and like I know a lot of women that do, but not all of them. Like, oh my God, you guys, I can't. Miss Lively disagreed but felt forced into a compromise that she would be naked from below the chest down. When the birth scene was filmed, the set was chaotic, crowded, and utterly lacking in standard industry protections for filming nude scenes, such as choreographing the scene with an intimacy coordinator, having a signed nudity rider, or simply turning off the monitors so that the scene was not broadcast to all crew on set and on their personal phones and iPads. And I think like this is so important again to consider as a consumer, you know, as people who are watching movies and, you know, or like TV shows, like what goes on behind that. Because I think about that too. I'm like, holy fuck, like that would be like so uncomfortable, right? Like you've got to really be like comfortable with that castmate, with that crew. And I always thought like how many people are in the room, right? And so then to even like think about it, yeah, like you don't have this set secure with like people that she approves and is comfortable with and have their phone, you know what I mean? Like the monitors in other rooms, like those aren't shut off. It's just, it's crazy. Or like somebody coordinating it, right? Being like, that, I feel like that is like a little bit of a buffer, right? Because you have a professional, has both of your best interests, and then is also like able to like step back and see and make like you feel comfortable. It's like, okay, like you're following someone else, not just like, okay, go rogue, like whatever you guys would have done at home, like just do that right now. You know, there's a professionalism about this situation that obviously can be really uncomfortable for actors. So this goes on to say, this makes me feel so bad for her, because it's like, this is such an icky feeling. And it feels like, yeah, you're like on display, and like it feels predatory in my opinion. It goes on to say, Mr. Heath and Mr. Baldoni also failed to close the set, allowing non-essential crew to pass through while Miss Lively was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups, and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia. Among the non-essential persons present that day, so along with all the other people that weren't supposed to be there, was Wayfarer co-chairman Mr. Sorowitz, who flew in for one of his first few set visits. Miss Lively was not provided with anything to cover herself in between takes until after she had asked multiple times. Miss Lively became even more alarmed when Mr. Baldoni introduced his best friend to play the role of the OBGYN, when ordinarily a role like this would have been filled by a local actor. So the person that is the OBGYN up there with Blake Lively is it's Justin Baldoni's best friend. So she felt that this was invasive and humiliating. Absolutely. I feel humiliated and invaded, and that wasn't even me. To add insult to injury, Mr. Heath approached Miss Lively and her assistant on set and started playing a video of a fully nude woman with her legs spread apart. Miss Lively thought he was showing her pornography and stopped him. Mr. Heath explained that it was a video of his wife giving birth. Like, oh no, it's okay. Like this nude woman with her like legs spread and just like shooting out a kid, that's my wife. It's all good. Miss Lively was alarmed and asked Mr. Heath if his wife knew he was sharing the video, to which he replied, she isn't weird about this stuff, as if Blake Lively was the weird one for not welcoming it. Miss Lively and her assistant excused themselves, stunned that Mr. Heath had shown them this nude video. Mr. Baldoni added a detailed scene to the film in which the underage version of Miss Lively's character, Lily, loses her virginity. So he adds this scene into the film. In both the book and the script for the film, there was no sex scene. Instead, the details of this moment were left to the audience imagination. But Mr. Baldoni added in considerable detail, including both dialogue between young Lily and her boyfriend, Atlas, about the loss of her virginity, as well as a simulated sex scene in which Mr. Baldoni filmed. You guys, this is really fucking disgusting. Just heads up. And included in his initial cut of the film. It was a close-up of young Lily's face, accompanied by an audible gasp at the moment of penetration. Miss Lively was informed that when this scene was shot, after Mr. Baldoni called cut, he walked over to the actors and said, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but that was hot, and did you practice this before? Oh, that makes me sick. Mr. Baldoni objectified Miss Lively and other women by commenting on or criticizing their bodies as sex objects. Mr. Baldoni often referred to women in the workplace as sexy. On another day, Miss Lively wore a low-cut dress to facilitate breastfeeding, but had it covered up with a coat. When the jacket briefly opened up at one point to reveal the dress, Mr. Baldoni commented on how much he liked her outfit, which flustered Miss Lively. Later that day, Mr. Baldoni pressured Miss Lively, who was in her pre-approved wardrobe, to remove her coat in front of the crew and multiple background actors in a packed bar. He said he wanted her onesie under the coat because it was zipped too low to reveal her lace bra. So he wanted to see the onesie under the coat because it was he wanted the lace bra revealed. Consent with past practice, he said, I think you look sexy, in a tone that made her feel ogled and exposed. With other female cast present, she said, that's not what I'm going for. He bristled and replied, I'm sorry, hot. Deeply uncomfortable, Miss Lively said, not that either. Mr. Baldoni responded sarcastically, I guess I missed the HR meeting, and walked away. Bro, you are the director? This is your production company? What are you talking about? I don't think you had HR also like for this, but oh my God, this is just ridiculous. Like for this person of authority, like he said, he's the leader. I guess I missed the HR meeting. Another woman on the production spoke to Miss Lively afterwards to offer empathy and to share her own similar experiences with Mr. Baldoni, commenting about her in sexual terms. As a result of Mr. Baldoni's behavior, on May 29, 2023, another cast member lodged a sexual harassment complaint about Mr. Baldoni's gross and unwanted comments towards her and others. While on one hand, Mr. Baldoni was objectifying Miss Lively as a sex object, on the other hand, he also went out of his way to message criticisms of her age and weight, neither of which she could change during filming. Yeah. This is one example. On the second day of filming, for example, Mr. Baldoni made the rest of the cast and crew wait for hours while he cried in Miss Lively's dressing room to her, claiming social media commentators were saying that she looked old and unattractive based on paparazzi photos from the set. He's crying to her about her appearance, like for this movie, and she's reassuring him that she looks authentic in the scene depicted in the photos, like for that specific scene. She's like, no, this is good because this is after the character had abused her, like his character had just abused her, right? Like, so he's like wanting her to be hotter, and she's like, this is actually good. Trying to calm this guy down by them saying that oh my God, about her. I can't. Mr. Baldoni, however, appeared to just focus on Miss Lively's sexual appeal above all else. His lengthy outburst caused a delay in shooting, forcing an emotional scene to be shot haphazardly. So it was like by the time they finally got done to this emotional scene, it was just like they were already so behind. Mr. Baldoni also routinely degraded Miss Lively by finding back-channel ways of criticizing her body and weight. A few weeks before filming, began, and less than 4 months after Miss Lively had given birth to her 4th child, Miss Lively was humiliated to learn that Mr. Baldoni secretly called her fitness trainer without her knowledge or permission and implied that he wanted her to lose weight in 2 weeks. Mr. Baldoni told the trainer that he had asked because he was concerned about having to pick Miss Lively up in a scene for the movie, but there was no such scene. So we heard about this, right? Like, that was like one of the first things that came out. And then again, I hated that everybody was like, oh my God, like he was worried about his back, da, da. And then we find out it's like, no, this was like a roundabout way of him, like, again, because apparently he's like an emotional wreck over her weight and her appearance. And then there's no scene. Another time when Miss Lively caught strep throat, Mr. Baldoni offered as a gift to connect her with an expert he had on retainer to help her with probiotics and to combat the sickness. When Miss Lively went to fill out the privacy form, she saw the expert was not what Mr. Baldoni had represented her to be, but was instead a weight loss specialist. Miss Lively once again felt that Mr. Baldoni was shaming her for her body and weight. That is nuts. Nuts. So it says when others lodged, not just Blake, when others lodged grievances regarding the conduct of Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath, which Wayfarer declined to investigate. Again, they are all entertained like they are Wayfarer. This is ridiculous. Filming halted during the strike and which it was set to resume. That's when Blake presented concerns and provisions to return. So like we said, like they basically were like, all right, we see it differently, but like, yeah, we're going to agree. And then like we mentioned, within these provisions, they agreed that there was going to be no retaliation against Blake. It's crazy. Like it's so crazy that she would have even had to like feel like she needed that. And then again, it's like they didn't even do that. And we have to remember, like, feel how you want about her, but like in this situation specifically, like she held up her end of the deal. She finished the filming. She marketed the film the way she was told and contractually obligated to market it. So was he. He's the one who went rogue. Like everybody else was doing what they were supposed to be doing, except him. And then it was like all put on her. So let's just read like a quick thing. So this is from the marketing. Okay, this is what they included in the suit. And then like I said, this looks very, very similar to like what a content creator would get when talking about like a product or promoting something. So it says right here, like what to avoid. Focus more on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence. Empowerment is not just about standing up to adversity, but also about having the power to overcome within oneself and grow from it and developing agency to shape the future. Avoid describing the film as a love story or love triangle. It's a story of Lily learning how to take agency of her future. Avoid talking about this film in ways that feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. Avoid talking about the film being representative of every woman's story. There are many stories of domestic violence, and this is just one perspective that is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own experience growing up. And then it goes, only if asked, underline. Any questions about the story not being an authentic representation of domestic violence? This is just one perspective that is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own deeply personal story of growing up in Texas. Again, only if asked. Any questions about the lack of diversity in the cast, same thing. We have such a wonderful cast who is bringing something unique and telling this powerful story of one woman's learning to take agency over her future. I'm proud to be a part of this incredible group of women who have made this film that is inspired by Colleen Hoover's own deeply personal story. So this here, like... Anyway, this is what everyone was given. Blake didn't make this up and saying like, she's not like rewording this. This is what they all got. This is what they all got. They were not supposed to do it. And if it was just like supposed to be like quickly, like, you know, like touched. Oh, like this is like Colleen's story. Or like lightly based on it. And then keep focusing on the positivity, like the resilience. And when you look at her stuff, like if you look at the full interviews, like absolutely it's in there. This once again shows how this smear campaign was carried out to like take those sound clips and those bites and put it like that to make it seem like that's the only way that she promoted it, which not only was she told that that's the way that she's supposed to promote it, but were those only clips. So when questions were asked and she was, you know, like to give like encouragement or a little bit of backstory, she did that. This is so freaking wild. So when the cast chose not to do with press with him because of his behavior, the crisis team, you know, and then they switch gears. So according to the complaint, Mr. Baldoni became concerned that the public would discover that something is much bigger under the surface. At that point, Mr. Baldoni pivoted away from the film's marketing plan to explain his absence from the rest of the cast. He shifted his focus away from a message of female triumph to instead capitalizing on female trauma. After the film's premiere, Mr. Baldoni changed his Instagram profile, canceled lighthearted social media posts, and instructed his team to look for survivors' reactions and support all in an effort to quickly shift his own public narrative to focus solely on survivors and domestic violence organizations. Miss Abel cautioned Mr. Baldoni that the shift might be too drastic too soon. Still, Mr. Baldoni insisted on a TikTok strategy and that his promotional activities for the film should seek to amplify what he described as survivor content. The team followed Mr. Baldoni's instructions. For her part, Miss Abel concluded, "It doesn't feel performative now that you've done major substantial press on the topic." On August 11, 2024, Miss Abel laid out a posting timeline to Mr. Baldoni and the team stating, theater surprise, and then I think survivor content first thing tomorrow, which then will be helpful for news cycle. By repositioning Mr. Baldoni's marketing of the film on information and belief, Mr. Baldoni hoped to create the false impression that he had chosen not to appear alongside other cast members. Mr. Baldoni directed his team to share on his public Instagram feed the private messages he had received from survivors, sharing their stories of domestic violence with him. And Mr. Baldoni's team talked him out of the idea, writing, "They do not recommend using private DMs as content." So yeah, from Justin to Jennifer, he goes, "Also, I need you guys to really be on all the stories I'm tagged in. I think you should all let people DM me so you can see people's reactions to the film and I can be reposting everything. These next 36 hours are crucial and we need to be on it. Looking at everything, finding the most emotional and touching content from survivors supporting this film and reposting. Need you to be finding survivor stories, their stories, and amplifying them on my page and my TikTok." Fucking gross, man. Mr. Baldoni went as far as proposing to share a video of a woman's birth moment, but the team talked him out of it, warning that it might be perceived as weird. Yeah, it's fucking weird. Weird, bro. And too intimate. Still, Mr. Baldoni's team were more than willing to deploy survivor stories, reactions, and images to protect Mr. Baldoni's image. As early as May 2024, Mr. Baldoni told his team that they needed to plan to get ahead of the claims against him in the event they were going to go public. Specifically, Mr. Baldoni wrote, "Just want you guys to have a plan. Plans make me feel more at ease." On May 17th, 2024, Mr. Baldoni texted his publicist, Jennifer Abel, that Miss Lively's husband had blocked them on social media, stating, "We should have a plan for if she does the same when the movie comes out." On June 2024, a month after Mr. Baldoni's first promotional event for the film, Miss Lively and others in the cast fulfilled their first publicly obligation for the film without Mr. Baldoni. They did not publicly discuss the misconduct that had occurred on set, nor did they ever suggest to Wayfarer or Mr. Baldoni that they intended to discuss their concerns publicly. Yet, on June 20th, 2024, Miss Abel texted Mr. Heath her concern. "We can't have fans starting to guess why JB is left out of this stuff." Likewise, Mr. Baldoni strategized with his publicist, Miss Abel, about various ways in which they might cover up or explain away his on-set misconduct. You guys, this is insane now too. So they were like, okay, if it gets to the point that, yeah, she's going to have enough people backing or enough evidence that this did happen, we need to already lay some stuff out in the media that is going to explain why, an excuse why. So on June 24th, 2024, Mr. Baldoni proposed an offensive move showing his neurodivergence and some of the attributes that it comes with to explain anything that he is accused of was just social awkwardness and impulsive speech. So he goes, this is to Jennifer. "Hey guys, one thing I think I want to do is the Dr. Amen show. Matt, I know you have your feelings about it, but his practice saved my friend Miranda's life a few months ago. With everything going on, I want to have an offensive move showing my neurodivergence and some of the attributes that comes with so that I can start talking about it. Most any of the things that I've been accused of is social awkwardness and impulse speech, and I think me sitting down with him and just looking at my brain and talking about some of these things will be helpful for me. Sure enough, People magazine released a story on him about him sharing being diagnosed with ADHD at 40 and how he struggled in school and felt, quote, broken. And again, this is so important for us as consumers to realize like that this happens all the time. If you want to like see it happening in real time with like positive pieces to like get on top of something, just look at like all of the stuff that's being written about like the Schwarzeneggers lately since Anne Green has been sharing her story with that family and like what the frick has happened. Because I'm like, why are we talking about it? And then I found Anne Green and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what, like it is so weird to be like, oh, like why do we care about, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter as like what she does like for tradition of celebrating Mother's Day like a few months, you know, like early on in the year. That's why. So, you know, like to see, oh, it made me feel broken. Like these words and this speech, it's designed to like make you feel an emotion and like make you feel a type of way. And then you're going to remember that, right? It'll be like, oh, like he had already talked about this. So it's not like he's going to, this is smart. Like I hate to say that, but it is. It's smart to be like, we are already going to have a piece ahead of this so that if this comes out, it can be like, look, I've already talked about this. This is what it was, as opposed to waiting to see if someone's going to say something and then coming and being like, oh, like I haven't talked about this, but this is why. So this is like, it's just crazy. So from there, they do not let off the throttle. On or about July 31st, 2024, this is when they retained Melissa Nathan, who is the owner of Tag. So at this point, this is like what they're already doing as a team. So then when they hire her, they say she markets herself as a team of crisis specialists and communications experts that redefine the rules of reputation management. By July 31st, 2024, Wayfarer had started to put together a timeline of events to be shared with Miss Nathan and Tag. According to Tag's own planning document, the purpose of Miss Nathan's engagement was to help Mr. Baldoni get ahead of the narrative and mitigate bad press that might arise from Miss Lively's and others. We also have to remember there's other people here who are obviously too scared to come forward. HR complaints becoming public by engaging in techniques such as rapid response communication system and cataloging third-party advocates willing to provide a potential quote or engage with reporters on Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's behalf to mitigate negative narratives from a source outside of Wayfarer. So yeah, this just kind of explains like for anybody being like, oh, but like we've seen people come forward on set like saying they didn't see anything and he's good to work with, like you're being fed that. Whether there's people like feeling like they were forced to say that or straight up people, which it is admitted in here, that are just lying. Like they're just freaking going in forums and making shit up. So Miss Nathan texted a text chain with Miss Abel, Mr. Heath, providing price quotes ranging from $75,000 to $175,000 for their crisis mitigation services. So she, this is the text that she sends. She goes, "Hi, Jamie Jen. So incredibly glad that the press went so well today. And from what I know, Justin felt incredibly supportive. He is lucky to have you all. We took the day today to do some research and get digital quotes in form of the two teams we use to get the best results. As you're both aware, we are in a predicament that we just do not know the outcome of right now. Saying that, full transparency is key here. We have seen the most innocuous issues due to socials or the hugest crisis have no effect on socials whatsoever. You just cannot tell at this stage. But Blake Lively does have some of the Taylor Swift fan base, so we will be taking it extremely seriously. We also understand audience is not solely Justin Baldoni fan base, but the studio, so it is covering all bases time. Quote 1, $175K. This will be for a 3 to 4 month period and include website to discuss, full Reddit, full social account takedowns, full social crisis team on hand for anything, engage with audience in the right way, start threads of theories to discuss. This is a way to be fully 100% protected. Quote 2, $25,000 per month, minimum 3 months, as is needed to seed same as above. So we can seed these things. This will be for creation of social fan engagement to go back and forth with any negative accounts, helping to change narrative and stay on track. All of this will be most importantly untraceable. All of this will be importantly untraceable. Melissa, you're stupid. This is a lot more. There are a lot more to both of these quotes, but easier to discuss via phone. Can you imagine what was said on the phone if this was there? Because she is like very aware, like we can't have things in writing. Can't write that down. And this is like bad enough in terms of capabilities and what I personally experienced in and out of crisis scenarios. Either way, I do feel it is better to be safe, but I do realize costs are something I am sure you did not count on when you took this project nor the situation. Let me know when you would like to discuss more around on PT tomorrow. Oh, gosh, yeah. You guys. On August 1st, 2024, before any of the cast sat down for interviews at the film's press junkets, Miss Abel stated to Mr. Heath and Wayfarer personnel that she had held an in-person meeting with a contributor to People, Fox News, In Touch, and US Weekly. Miss Abel explained that during the meeting, she had fully briefed the contributor on the situation with Miss Lively. Miss Abel stated that the contributor was armed and ready to take the story of Blake weaponizing feminism and assured Mr. Heath that the contributor will do anything for us. So yeah, Jennifer says to Jamie, thanks for the call. Confidentially, I'm out to dinner with a friend of 12 plus years who writes for People Magazine, Fox News, In Touch, Us Weekly, and she's fully briefed on the situation and is armed and ready to take the story of Blake weaponizing feminism to any of her outlets the minute we give her the green light. She hates Blake. She's heard stories before and will do anything for us, just FYI. So the scenario planning document states also that TAG could also explore planting stories about weaponizing feminism and how people in Blake Lively's circle, like Taylor Swift, have been accused of utilizing these tactics to bully into getting what they want. And then it was later that day, so after all of this was already out there, which is insane. Like oh my God, like when you see as much as like what was going on and what their plans were, that's when that text happened of saying that Mr. Baldoni was concerned over it being aggressive enough. So oh my gosh, it goes on to say on August 4th, Miss Abel texted Miss Nathan stating, I'm having reckless thoughts of wanting to plant pieces this week of how horrible Blake is to work with, just to get ahead of it. She's putting us through hell. And then in brackets, like, because this is like Blake, like lawyers and stuff like that, Miss Lively was in fact doing nothing other than engaging in the approved marketing plan for the film at this time. And then so after Jennifer said that, like, she's putting us through hell, Melissa goes, same. Oh my God, again, I cannot stand how these women write. She goes, am I already off the record spoke to the editor Daily Mail because she's my friend. She's ready when we are. Melissa, oh my God, Melissa. Miss Abel and Miss Nathan viewed and referred to their shared work on behalf of Mr. Baldoni as a social combat plan. Jennifer says to Melissa, I think we really need to put social combat plan into motion. She goes, so do I. On August 9th, 2024, Miss Abel and Miss Nathan then discussed suppressing 2 stories that report Miss Lively was uncomfortable on set. Miss Nathan texted, all press is so overwhelming. We've confused people sending so many mixed messages. It's actually really funny if you think about it. So at that point, and I think like looking back, if you were following it like that, it's so weird to like think about how that happened because it was happening like that, like where finally there were pieces that were coming out saying that she was uncomfortable, again, not going into like a lot of detail about it, and then all of a sudden just like bulldozed with a bunch of other things and other pieces coming out, and then obviously now we know like fake people corroborating these fake scenarios. So they go from Jennifer, so are we in the clear now? Did we survive? Melissa goes, we survived. All press is so overwhelming. We've confused people. So many mixed messages. It's actually really funny if you think about it. Jennifer goes, yes, I had some people text me too, and I just didn't respond. The narrative online is so freaking good, and fans are still sticking up for Justin. And there literally has been no pickup of those 2 articles, which is actually shocking to me. But I see this as a total success, as does Justin. You did such amazing work. Melissa goes, narrative is crazy good. So did you. From Melissa again, the majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them. LOL. He doesn't realize how lucky he is right now. We need to press him on how fucking lucky he is. The whispering in the ear and the sexual connotation, like Jesus fucking Christ. Other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there's just so much. She's saying like there's just so much like evidence that he did all of this. At this point, Blake hadn't even like come out. This was other people like talking about these stories. Jennifer goes, nothing, very, very little pickup. Fans remain supportive of you and believe the issue of the feud is because she took control of the movie. So right there, they're saying, yeah, like right now, like they're so dumb. They think that this is because like Blake took control of the movie. This is ridiculous. They go on to like say, we're crushing it on Reddit. And then that was from Melissa to Jennifer, like reiterating that this is what like Jed, their like enforcer person who was going on like forums like Reddit to plant these things, saying, no, like we're turning people over there. We're saying that like we know personally when they didn't, and that we're spinning this. This is important. She goes, it's actually sad because it just shows how people really want to hate on women. This is a woman saying this to another woman who have said that they believe the women complaining, but are still for the money protecting this man. This is what this is saying, their own words. Then later on in the day, they wanted to update. Melissa goes, hi team, so far extremely limited pickup on Daily Mailer, page 6. We'll continue to keep an eye out and send pieces as needed. So far, been steady coverage on pure speculation. We've also started to see a shift on social, due largely because of Jed and his team's efforts to shift the narrative towards spinning a spotlight on Blake and Ryan. Again, we will continue to send links and screenshots. Just wanted to update. So we already saw that, but this kind of gives context of like how that timeline was going. To me, like just their own words are so insane. And so I did see a story that was mentioned in Blake's complaint that I saw this also when I was speaking to other people. And I thought that story was going to be a catalyst of like shining light on looking into Justin a little bit more. I was shocked that it didn't really go anywhere. And like, sure enough, now we know that it was like, because his team also had seen it and upped the ante to like try to suppress it. The Blake's complaint says on August 9th, 2024, Miss Abel circulated a screenshot of a post by a woman stating Justin, the creator of a show called My Last Days, Justin Baldoni. This is facts. He did have a like, I don't know if it was like ever on TV, but it's definitely on YouTube. And it was like the series of My Last Days. And so this woman wrote about it saying that it exploits the struggles of individuals who are facing terminal illnesses for his own gain. This person says, he found my friend who is battling a serious illness and followed her life closely. Despite her grace in not speaking ill of him, I sensed from the start that something was deeply wrong. Justin weaponizes therapeutic language, presenting himself as thoughtful and supportive, yet his actions reveal a very different reality. He portrays himself as an ally to women and the vulnerable, but it is all a facade. He manipulates the vernacular of care to mask his true intentions. In reality, none of the proceeds from the show benefited the individuals he profiled. He even had the audacity to depict her hometown, a vibrant and affluent community, as a small, impoverished town. His portrayal was not only just inaccurate, but insulting. Once the show aired, Justin took his profits and vanished, leaving nothing but a sense of exploitation in his wake. His behavior was not just tacky and gross, it was a betrayal of the very people he claimed to uplift. Long story short, he did this series called My Last Days, and he interviewed like terminally ill people. And so somebody close to one of his subjects had come forward saying this, and this is how they perceived his intentions. So in response to this article, Jennifer Abel screenshotted it. She says, I'm assuming this is not true in the slightest. Either way, we flagged it to Jed and his team for more serious action on the social side. Like, that is so crazy. Because it's like, why say like, I'm assuming it's not true. I saw that girl talking on writing about this on social media, and like her friend and everything, and referenced the interview that was done. What do you mean it's not true, babe? So then again, there's another group chat here on the 18th of 2024 to get ahead of something. And it's from Jennifer saying, so this girl on socials is claiming that Justin invited her up to his hotel room years ago. I didn't want to share the vid, but blank did a screen record and this is her account. So you guys can look at it. Part of me wants blank, his former assistant, to comment and say this never happened. Ridiculous. Melissa goes, let's chat to Jed as well on this one. Like, these women, how do you sleep at night? Like, you should be ashamed. Like, shame. Like Game of Thrones, like walking down, like shame. To say that you like believe so much and then like, or when you don't want to like acknowledge, be like, I don't know how much of this is true. And then basically call people stupid, like because you got paid to protect a scumbag, allegedly. Like, there's just like no money in the world that I could ever like compromise my sleep at night for. Like, I gotta sleep good, baby. How are you sleeping? Medicated? I would assume. Allegedly, in my opinion. Throughout this statement, it shows just how involved Justin was also in this behind the scenes. Anytime there was like a negative article about him, you know, he'd screenshot and be like, there's no way we can just let this go. Like, get on this. We need to get on this. Like, not enough is being done. Additionally, on August 15th, 2024, Mr. Baldoni texts Miss Nathan and Miss Abel stating that his business partner, Mr. Sorowitz, suggested flipping the narrative arising from unnamed sources who had made false claims about Mr. Reynolds' involvement in the script of the film and suggested ways to manipulate those rumors to make Mr. Reynolds appear to be anti-feminist. There was no truth to these claims. So from Justin, he says, no worries, quickly, my partner Steve asked about flipping the narrative from this leak this AM about Ryan saying script was a disaster and he saved the movie. Let's flip it to something about Ryan claiming the female hired was a feminist writer who didn't know how to tackle a female film, etc., using their own words against him. Boy, please. Miss Nathan assures him, yeah, this is an easy flip. And then indicates that she's already working on a story for Variety to achieve this goal. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is just insane. Yeah, in the lawsuit, Blake, states that at this point, her PR did not even get involved until after that premiere event. So while all of this is going on, they're just like, what the shit is going on? And then from there, you know, like when the speculation got crazier with him not being with the rest of the cast, and it just like fueled even more, and she sees like the vitriol from the media and like social media amping, she's like, oh my God, like that's when it had like clicked that the way that this was handled, like she's like, there's no other way that this isn't Justin and like the Wayfarer team. At this point, it says, as of August 16th, 2024, Miss Nathan was continuing to confer with additional reporters to release stories that would cast Miss Lively and or Mr. Reynolds in negative light. Meanwhile, Miss Lively neither publicly commented nor directed any of her representatives to comment or engage with the print media, social media, or otherwise about the hostile work environment Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, and Wayfarer created. Indeed, throughout the time period discussed herein, Miss Lively did not provide her publicists with details about the hostile work environment that she, alongside the other cast member and crew, had experienced. Miss Lively expressly instructed her publicists not to engage with press inquiries, including ones regarding the on-set behavior of Mr. Baldoni, Mr. Heath, or Wayfarer. So that is so insane to me. Because in this lawsuit, she's stating that her PR team, you know, like I'm sure like she's got to have a massive team are seeing this. Clearly she's seeing, everybody is seeing this. And at this point, she's still saying like, just don't engage, just don't say anything. We're just going to hold our head up high, be the bigger people, like keep going on. It wasn't until like after that red carpet premiere where like things were clicking. So she's saying like, just don't even get involved. And it was until after that premiere when things got even crazier and, you know, the vitriol from like the team and social media's amped up, that's when she started to suspect Justin and the team and then, you know, looked into it. And I did think about this too. I thought, okay, what she's saying, I would tend to like believe her because you wouldn't want to think that he would be jeopardizing this film. Because even with all of that negativity, you have no way what way that's going to sway. Obviously, we know that they felt like they had a lot of control because they're allegedly having false sources and stuff like that out there. But even if it's painting Blake in the light that it was like, and it was his own team on his own movie, why would you risk that with your own movie's potential success or lack of? It's just crazy. And I think what's rich about all this as well is that he does have a podcast. We briefly mentioned it. It's geared literally towards being an ally to women. He's even done a TED Talk about how women need to be believed and like men need to do their work to be allies and believe women when they speak. So this is like quotes from things that he said. So growing up, many times I'd hear bro before hoes. How demeaning, how sexist. We've built this system, the opposite of accountability. And now it's time to figure out how as men we can break the system. And it starts with showing what a real man is. A real man is someone that says, hey man, we're still friends, but that's not cool. Imagine being sexually assaulted, finally coming forward about this traumatic thing that's happened to you, and having people acting like you were to blame. It's important for us men to realize how crucial a role bystanders can play in stopping and preventing assault and harassment. How we must be a part of the movement and call for respect and equality for women, act upon the call to action, and continue to perpetuate positive behavior among ourselves and our communities. Are you confident enough to listen to the women in your life? And will you be man enough to stand up to another man when you hear locker room talk? When you hear the stories of sexual harassment? You can't make that up. These are his words. You were literally in the position that you're asking men to put themselves in and how to act. And not only did you not take it seriously and make condescending remarks and push it aside and not do anything, to the point where production was almost halted until this closed door meeting with everybody. And then you go on this is just like horrific smear campaign, allegedly, if this is all true. Like, you guys, these are their own messages. It's just, there is so much. I know, like, you're like, what more? Because we've gone through so much. But I'm going to leave the links so that you can pour into it if you like reading like the court documents, and just like on the bottom of every page, there are sources that are cited. So like you can go to the examples of like each article that they're referencing, podcasts, episodes, Reddit forum, like there is some hours and hours and hours that you guys will probably go. It's an 80-page document in itself, and then from there you can go to sources. The screenshots that you've seen here today, those are directly from Blake's legal complaint. And I don't know, I think that this is just, I wanted to talk about this, such a huge wake-up call to how media works, how money talks, and how we are just like so quick in today's society to just blindly believe and just like jump on this bandwagon of like this cancel culture. And yeah, a lot of this just made me absolutely sick. So at this point, I'm filming on December 23rd, 2024. An attorney for Wayfarer has said in a statement that the executives and public relations representatives did nothing proactive nor retaliated against Miss Lively, and accused the actress of another desperate attempt to fix her negative reputation. What do you mean another desperate attempt? She's been silent. Crickets on their end. We know why, because they were subpoenaing things because they knew something was going wrong and getting all of this information. Like, these are your guys' own words. I'm like, what are you saying? These claims are completely false, outrageous, and intentionally salacious, with an intent to publicly hurt and rehash a narrative in the media, the lawyer Brian Freeman worked. No, sweetheart. Brian, I need you to focus for a second here. These are your client's own words. These were their own words. These are their own documents. Like, what are you talking about? Mr. Freeman did not address her allegations about misconduct during filming by Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath. He alleged that Miss Lively planted negative and completely fabricated false stories in the media. Again, Brian, that was your client. Oh my gosh, I can't. Also, Miss Jennifer Abel, she's replied. So this is Jennifer's reply. She goes, "Hi, I never thought the day would come when I needed to defend myself with my own peers, but this certainly has been an interesting and devastating, quite frankly, couple days, so here we are. But here are the facts. No, I was never subpoenaed. I found out my private text messages and emails were included in the complaint after I received it on Friday night, and that the New York Times contacted me 1.5 hours after receipt. They had already reviewed the 80-page document and had questions prepared, and apparently also received thousands of pages of documents with our correspondence that we never saw. So it was clear that this was a coordinated effort, but nothing we haven't seen before since I've been working in talent PR for over 15 years now. I'd recently left my previous firm, at which I was still with during this campaign, with a team who all participated in the campaign and a boss who oversaw, and who had access to my work emails and work phone, so you can deduce from that what you will. What the cherry-picked messages don't include, although not shockingly, as it doesn't fit the narrative, is that there was no smear implemented, no negative press was ever facilitated, no social combat plan." I'm so confused if it was your guys' messages and that you guys were talking about like killing it on Reddit and stuff like that. But we didn't have to implement anything because the internet was doing the work for us. Sure, we talked about it, contemplated if we needed certain things, flagged accounts that we needed to monitor, worked with social teams to help us stay on top of the narrative so we could act quickly if needed. And yes, we rejoiced and joked in the fact that fans were recognizing our client's heart and work without us having to do anything but keep our heads down and focus on positive interviews for our client. As the text show, we sophomorically reveled and again joked privately to each other about the internet's feedback on the women whose team was making our lives incredibly difficult over the course of the campaign. I'm human. The long hours, months of preparation on top of my day-to-day scope, it felt good to see that although we were prepared, we didn't have to do anything over the top to protect our client. Incredibly difficult, you say? In what way? Funny, you should ask. I was notified at the start of the campaign that the opposing team had been planting horrible stories about my client as a fail-safe if my client did not comply with the demands set forth for the campaign, which is why we brought on Crisis, as it's not something that I do. My sole job was to put together interviews, screening opportunities, and speaking opportunities for my client in support of the film. A standard scope of work, I did my job. Now, what kind of woman would work against other women who was a victim of all the things being claimed? Thanks for asking. After reviewing the evidence, facts, hard proof that countered every single thing that was being claimed and demanded at the start of production, I made a choice to stand by my client of almost 5 years who had dedicated his life to the equal treatment of others, especially women. I had no incidents of negative treatment of others who had a wonderful community and team at Wayfarer who all held the same moral fortitude and lived their life accordingly. As representatives, we all have to make that choice. So I did that to the best of my ability and felt good about our efforts. Is my client perfect? No. In fact, he says he's not perfect so constantly to the point that I'm telling him he needs to be less self-deprecating because it could be taken the wrong way. Are Blake's feelings valid? It's not my position to say or speculate what she was feeling in these moments that she claims, and I would never slam a woman for speaking her truth. But at the end of the day, it's not the truth, and there is evidence that proves otherwise. Then as a representative, I have to do what I feel is right as well. Okay, well, we haven't seen the evidence. We've seen like your own words, and I'm not sure if she just thought people weren't going to read through everything. It's like, no, you specifically said, like, Jed out there was planting things. Ladies, what are we talking about? And although I, wanted time to like form an opinion about what was specifically going on with this and the set of It Ends With Us, I, along with so many of us, did see some unsavory interviews with Blake that, definitely made me feel disheartened. And again, it's like parasocial. I don't know Blake. You get a perception of somebody. I think it's also like the Canadian heart of me just being proud of like Ryan Reynolds. I think that, they've done a lot of good things with their careers. I think that they've are human as well and have like owned up to things that they probably aren't like that proud of. But seeing that interview, like that seems to like show a character. So if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was a interview that was released while all this was going on. It was a 2016 interview with Kirsty Flaw, and she decided to upload this 2016 interview to YouTube in the wake of all of this, and it was cringe. I felt it did warrant the mean girl behavior and opinions that people were having about Blake's behavior and also Parker Posey. Basically, if you haven't seen it, like Kirsty comments on Blake's baby bump, which it was just released. She had just publicly like confirmed that she was pregnant. And so she's like, congratulations on your little bump. And then Blake bites back, like congratulating her on her little bump like that, and the interview was not pregnant. And then from there, both her and Parker Posey were condescending and icky that whole interview. They were like, oh, do you think that they would ask the men? Do you think that? And like the interview was just like sitting there and they're having conversation, deliberately excluding this interviewer from it. Yeah, it wasn't cool. And she didn't say anything about it. And when I first saw that, I was like, okay, like, of course, like share this stuff. And this was your experience. It wasn't the best experience. We never know what kind of day like you're going to meet people on, right? So yeah, obviously this is something that like stuck with her for a long time. And then after that, I just saw like on her YouTube, just trying to run with that and like keep that momentum going and like talking about, like why that went viral and this and that. And then talking about other interviews like, oh, this is my other worst interview. And what's the story behind this? She did it to Anne Hathaway too. And then immediately Anne Hathaway like replied and was like, I'm sorry that you felt this way, explained her position. And then the interviewer, this Kirsty, like goes back and just like, see, like, thank you, like to Anne, like this is like what you need to do is like acknowledge it and stuff like that. And to be fair, like Anne was just kind of like not like she answered the question. It wasn't like Blake, like awful. Kirsty was like wanting to interview her in song because it was like an interview for Les Mis, and Anne was like, I'm not gonna do that. She wasn't laughing. She was just like, no. So anyways, she got what she wanted out of it. She titled it like the Blake interview that made me want to quit my job, and then basically told Daily Mail that the reason she did it was because she wanted to, you know, hold people in Hollywood like accountable for their bad behavior. And rightfully so. Yes, we can't just like let people like get away with shitty behaviors, but then it like rolls back. It's like two things can be true at once. She can also have had very unsavory moments and then had things happen to her that don't excuse that. Like, you don't get to be like, oh, well, you did this in 2016 and this was a really terrible interview. And obviously you didn't jive with this girl. Showed a little bit of quite a mean side to you. Petty, I guess you would say. And then that now like these things are coming out and it's like, oh, it's okay. Like, yeah, no, it's okay if she was sexually assaulted or felt like that or like sexually harassed and made to feel this uncomfortable and exposed. Like when you go back and you reread all of this stuff, especially with like the OBGYN best friend act, like no actor on there, like oh my God, it's just, it doesn't excuse it. It's good to bring it to light, but it doesn't excuse it. So anyways, she has uploaded a video now saying that it was purely coincidental and that she had no idea what was going on like with the press at this point, or in like obviously like behind the scenes with Justin's team. She's like, oh, I was on vacation and then I just like came back and I decided, it was like time to post it, but that no one had reached out with her. So that, she's clarifying that she hadn't been working with the team and wasn't one of those people to be like, oh, do you have like anything that we could use that can, like help just continue focusing direction on her. So yeah, at this point, those are the responses. Yeah, like I'll keep you updated, but things are just not looking good for Justin. And I'm so pissed. So pissed that I can never watch Jane the Virgin again at this point. We don't know, right? Like they haven't, I'm assuming like in a lawsuit, they obviously have their opportunity to come back and show the receipts and everything that they have. So we'll see what happens from there. But at this point, this does not look good. Does not look good. And I think, again, let's just all be reminded that now we definitely need to like sit back and see how this unfolds and go from there. But yeah, I just freaking give up on having, like favorites, like being like, oh, I love you guys. And then you just, we get let down. Everybody in this was too. I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, Justin Baldoni, Jane the Virgin, Blake Lively, look, it's Blake Lively. I thought this was going to be a great movie. And now I just feel like I can look like no one the same in any of this. But anyways, this is it for me. I hope you have a good Christmas. I know I said that last video. This will be my last upload before then. I don't even know if I'll be able to get this out before Christmas or maybe on Christmas. Who knows? I don't know when you're getting this. If you're getting this before Christmas, have a good Christmas. If you're getting it after, I hope you had an amazing Christmas. I will see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.